The ultimatum. Ambassador Kalen Vross stood before the assembled dignitaries of the Tal Shera Empire, his weathered hands clasped behind his back. The crystalline chamber of the Grand Tribunal stretched above him like the rib cage of some ancient beast, refracting the light of 3 distant suns into cascading rainbows. Beautiful, he thought, for a prison. High Arbiter Zizkera, a being whose iridescent carapace shifted through colors no human language had words for, loomed from her elevated throne. Her 4 eyes regarded Kalen with what he'd learned to recognize as contempt. "Human," she began, her voice resonating through translation implants that made her words feel like they originated inside his skull. "The Tal Shera stellar empire has existed for 47,000 cycles. We have guided 163 species into the light of civilization. We have brought order to chaos, prosperity to primitives, and peace to the perpetually violent." Kalen said nothing. He'd learned that silence unnerved them more than words. Zizkera's mandibles clicked, a sound of displeasure. "Your species was discovered 3 solar rotations ago. You possess faster-than-light capability, basic energy manipulation, and rudimentary genetic sciences. By all metrics of the Ascension protocols, humanity qualifies for integration." "Integration," Kalen repeated, his voice calm. "An interesting word for conquest." A ripple of shock emanated from the lesser arbiters flanking Zizkera. One did not contradict the High Arbiter. The chamber's atmospheric processors hummed louder, compensating for the sudden tension. Zizkera's primary eyes narrowed. "We do not conquer. We elevate. The Tal Shera Empire offers your primitive civilization protection, technology, and purpose. In exchange, humanity will contribute resources, military conscripts, and genetic material to the greater good of the Empire." "And if we decline this generous offer?" Kalen asked. "There is no declination. There is only acceptance or correction." Zizkera gestured with one of her 6 segmented limbs toward the holographic display that materialized between them. It showed Earth, blue, green, fragile. Around it, red markers bloomed like infections. "Our correction fleets are already positioned throughout your system. Should you choose poorly, your home world will be sterilized, and your species will be catalogued as a failed integration, a cautionary tale for others." Kalen studied the display with the practiced eye of a man who'd served 30 years in Earth's Unified Space Command before becoming a diplomat. He counted the markers. 83 capital ships, each capable of cracking a moon. The Empire wasn't bluffing. "I see," he said quietly. "And you've made this offer to how many other species?" "All 163 civilizations we have encountered," Zizkera said with evident pride. "All have chosen wisdom over extinction." "Every single one?" "Without exception." Kalen nodded slowly, then reached into his jacket pocket. Immediately, a dozen weapon systems hummed to life around the chamber, targeting him with sufficient firepower to vaporize a battle tank. He withdrew a small data chip and held it up between 2 fingers. "This," he said calmly, "is humanity's response to your ultimatum. However, I should clarify something first. I'm not humanity's sole representative. I'm one of 47 ambassadors sent to 47 different Tal Shera tribunal chambers across this sector." Zizkera's carapace darkened, the Tal Shera equivalent of narrowing one's eyes. "What game is this?" "No game. Just efficiency. You see, we knew you'd make this speech. We've intercepted communications from a dozen species already under your thumb. The Karathi, the Plenix, the Vaughn Collective. They all got the same speech, the same threat, the same choice that wasn't really a choice. Then you understand the futility of resistance." Kalen smiled, a cold expression that didn't reach his eyes. "Arbiter Zizkera, there's something you should understand about humans. We're not like the species you've encountered before. We've spent our entire history fighting each other over scraps of land, ideological differences, and resources. We're really, really good at war. But more importantly, we're really good at recognizing bullies." He placed the data chip on the pedestal before him. "That chip contains a comprehensive analysis of every Tal Shera military engagement for the past 5,000 cycles. Your tactics, your fleet deployments, your strategic weaknesses. And it also contains a message." "What message?" Zizkera's voice had lost its superiority, replaced by something colder. Kalen's smile widened. "Come and try." The chamber erupted in chaos as the lesser arbiters began shouting over one another. Zizkera raised a limb for silence. "You would choose extinction over enlightenment?" "No," Kalen said. "We'd choose freedom over slavery. There's a difference." He turned to leave. "You have 72 hours to withdraw your fleets from our system. After that, we'll consider it an act of war. You cannot win this fight, human. Kalen paused at the chamber's entrance and looked back over his shoulder. Maybe not. But we'll make you regret starting it. The council awakens. Dr. Miriam Chinokafor stood in the observation deck of the Exodus station, watching the metallic sphere slowly rotate in the vacuum beyond the reinforced glass teal. The sphere was 30 kilometers in diameter, its surface covered in geometric patterns that hurt to look at for too long, angles that seemed to exist in more dimensions than the human eye could process. "It's beautiful," whispered Commander Darius Kane, standing beside her. His reflection in the window showed the worry lines that had deepened over the past 3 days since Kalen's ultimatum had been delivered. "It's terrifying," Miriam corrected. "We don't actually know what we're waking up." The sphere had been discovered 60 years ago during humanity's first expedition beyond the Kuiper Belt. It had been drifting inert, seemingly abandoned for eons. Every analysis came back identical. The material was unknown, the energy signature was 0, and the age was incalculable. Humanity had towed it to the Exodus station and had been studying it ever since. Until 3 days ago, when Miriam's team had discovered something extraordinary. The geometric patterns weren't decorative, they were a mathematical key. And when humanity had used Talshera energy signatures to try decoding it, the sphere had hummed to life for the first time in unknown millennia. "Initiating final sequence," announced Dr. Yuki Tanaka from the control center, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. "Power levels increasing. We're seeing quantum fluctuations across 17 dimensions." 17. Miriam's breath caught. "That's impossible. The theoretical maximum is." The sphere blazed with light that wasn't quite light, something that existed between photons and thought. The observation deck's windows automatically dimmed, but Miriam could still feel the radiation washing over her, warm and somehow aware. Then it spoke. Not in words, but in concepts that materialized directly in their minds. Miriam heard gasps throughout the control center as every human present experienced the same thing simultaneously. "Who awakens the Concord?" Miriam stepped forward, her heart hammering. They'd prepared speeches, diplomatic protocols, first contact procedures. None of it seemed adequate now. "We are humanity," she said aloud, hoping whatever this was could understand. "We are an emergent spacefaring civilization facing an existential threat from the Talshera Empire. We. Al-Shara." The concept came with layers of meaning. Recognition, disappointment, ancient memory. Children who forgot their lessons. "You know them?" Darius asked. "We know all who once sat in judgment. We know all who once served the light." The sphere's surface began to shift, panels sliding away to reveal a core that pulsed with the rhythm of a heartbeat. From that core, light coalesced into a form, humanoid but only approximately. It had too many joints, eyes that saw in spectrums beyond human comprehension, and skin that seemed to be woven from starlight. "I am Keeper Vethazir," it said, now using audible speech. Its voice carried harmonics that made Miriam's bones ache. "Last of the Concord of enlightened worlds. We who watched the young species grow. We who intervened when darkness threatened to consume all. The last." Yuki's voice cracked. "What happened to the others?" Vethazir's form flickered, perhaps the equivalent of a sad smile. "We grew old, Dr. Tanaka. Civilizations, like individuals, have their seasons. We had our spring, our summer, our golden autumn. And then we had our winter. Most of my kindred chose the long sleep, to return to the cosmic substrate from which all consciousness emerges. I chose to remain dormant, waiting." "Waiting for what?" Miriam asked. "For a species worthy of our legacy. For beings who would face impossible odds not with surrender, but with defiance. For those who would awaken us not in desperation, but in hope." Vethazir moved closer to the window, and Miriam realized it was examining them as much as they were examining it. "The Talshera were once our students," Vethazir continued. 47,000 cycles ago, they were a young species on the brink of self-annihilation. We taught them structure, order, discipline. We gave them the tools to survive. The being's many eyes dimmed. But we forgot to teach them wisdom. We gave them power without purpose, expansion without understanding. They became what we feared most, teachers who learned only to command, never to listen. Can you help us fight them? Darius asked bluntly. Fight? No, Commander Kane. The Concord took a vow never to wage war again after we nearly destroyed the galaxy in our youth. Vethazir's form brightened. But we can do something better. We can teach. We can reveal. We can show you what the Talshera have forgotten. The being raised a limb and suddenly the observation deck filled with holographic images, star systems, weapons beyond imagining, and something else. Coordinates. Thousands of them. These are the locations of every dormant Concord facility in this galaxy. Ancient workshops. Knowledge repositories. Technologies that predate the Tal Shara Empire by 20 million cycles. Miriam felt tears forming. You're giving us a fighting chance. No, Dr. Chinokafor. I'm giving you a choice. The Tal Shara expect submission. Let us see what they receive instead. The first strike. Captain Zara Michailova gripped the command chair of the UNSC Defiant Horizon as the ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. Before them, arranged in a perfect blockade formation, sat 17 Tal Shara cruisers, each one 3 times the size of her vessel. Tactical report, she ordered, her voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding her system. Lieutenant Jamal Torres bent over his console, his dark eyes reflecting the glow of incoming data. 17 capital ships confirmed, Captain. They're hailing us. Standard Tal Shara surrender protocol. They're demanding we power down our weapons and prepare for boarding. Zara allowed herself a cold smile. Weapons, what's our status? All Concord retrofits online, Captain, replied Weapons Officer Natasha Volkov. Quantum disruptors charged. Dimensional shift generators ready. Phase torpedoes loaded in all tubes. They're getting impatient, Captain, Jamal announced. They're charging weapons. Let them, Zara said. She opened a ship-wide channel. All hands, this is the captain. 3 days ago, Ambassador Vross told the Tal Shara Empire that humanity doesn't submit. Today we prove it. Make our ancestors proud. She cut the channel and leaned forward. Helm, execute pattern Ragnarok 7. The Defiant Horizon lurched forward, accelerating at speeds that should have pulverized everyone aboard. But the Concorde inertial dampeners held, a technology so advanced that the ship's crew felt only a gentle pressure as they rocketed toward the Tal Shara blockade at near light speed. They're firing, Jamal called out. The view screen lit up with energy beams, enough firepower to atomize a small moon. They passed through empty space. The Defiant Horizon was no longer where the Tal Shara targeting computers predicted. Dimensional shift successful, Natasha reported with fierce grin. We're 0.03 seconds ahead of their targeting solutions. Zara watched as her ship phased through reality itself, occupying a space fractionally out of sync with normal spacetime. The Concorde had called it riding the quantum foam. To the Tal Shara sensors, the human ship would appear to flicker and jump randomly, impossible to target. Fire torpedoes. All tubes. The phase torpedoes launched, weapons that existed partially in subspace until the moment of impact. They passed through the Tal Shara shields as if they weren't there, then materialized inside the hulls of 3 cruisers simultaneously. The explosions were spectacular. Atmosphere vented into space as the cruisers buckled, their armor peeling away like paper. 3 targets critically damaged, Jamal reported, his voice tinged with disbelief. Captain, it's working. It's actually working. But Zara knew better than to celebrate early. Tactical update? 14 remaining ships breaking formation. Captain, they're retreating to defensive positions. They're scared, Natasha breathed. The comm crackled to life. A Tal Shara voice, distorted by translation algorithms, filled the bridge. Human vessel, cease your attack immediately. You are violating 17 galactic accords by deploying prohibited weapons technology. Stand down or face complete annihilation. Zara gestured for Jamal to open a channel. This is Captain Zara Michailova of the United Nations Space Command vessel Defiant Horizon. You have 72 hours to withdraw from this system, as Ambassador Vross stated. You now have 68 hours remaining. Leave or we'll send you home in debris fields. Impossible. No primitive species possesses such technology. Where did you? Zara cut the transmission. I don't have time for their existential crisis. Natasha, fire quantum disruptors. Show them what else we've learned. The disruptors unleashed beams of coherent quantum uncertainty. Weapons that didn't just damage ships, they temporarily unraveled the fundamental forces holding matter together. Where the beams struck, Tal Shara vessels simply ceased to be coherent objects, their atoms forgetting how to bond with each other. 2 more cruisers dissolved into clouds of constituent elements. 12 remaining, Jamal announced. Captain, they're forming up for a coordinated assault. All ships charging their main cannons. Let them waste their energy. Helm, bring us about. Activate the Penrose Protocol. The helmsman's hands trembled slightly as she entered the commands. The Penrose Protocol was theoretical, even by Concorde standards. It involved creating a microscopic rotating black hole, using its frame-dragging effects to curve spacetime itself. The defiant horizon shimmered and vanished from normal spacetime entirely for 3 seconds. When it reappeared, it was 15,000 kilometers behind the Tal-Shara formation. "Fire at will," Zara commanded. The battle lasted 17 minutes. When it ended, 12 Tal-Shara cruisers were either destroyed or crippled beyond repair. The defiant horizon had taken minimal damage, a few scorched hull plates where one lucky shot had clipped them during a dimensional transition. Zara surveyed the debris field, feeling no triumph, only grim determination. "Communications, send this engagement data to Fleet Command. Encrypt it with Concorde protocols and broadcast it across all human channels." "Aye, Captain." "May I ask why we're broadcasting our tactics?" "Because we're not the only human ship engaging the Tal-Shara today," Zara explained. 47 ambassadors delivered 47 ultimatums. "We need every captain to know what works." She stood from her chair and moved to the view screen, watching the distant stars. "Jamal, prepare a message for the Tal-Shara High Command. Tell them this: humanity has been fighting wars since we lived in caves. You picked the wrong species to threaten. The Empire fractures." High Arbiter Zijkara stood in the war chamber of the Imperial Citadel, watching holographic reports stream in from across the Empire. Each one brought worse news than the last. Her carapace had shifted to a deep violet, the color of profound distress. "The Third Fleet reports complete destruction at Kepler 442, announced War Coordinator Thexmil, his tentacles writhing in agitation. "The Seventh Fleet has gone silent at Proxima Centauri. The 19th Fleet is requesting emergency reinforcements at Tau Ceti." "How?" Zijkara demanded. "How does a primitive species that achieved faster-than-light travel only 200 cycles ago possess technology that predates our empire?" A new voice entered the chamber, old, crackling with age and wisdom. "Because they found what we have spent millennia hiding." Elder Scholar Kewanthara emerged from the shadows, supported by a gravity harness that kept her ancient body from collapsing under its own weight. She had been alive when the Tal-Shara first encountered the ruins of the Concorde, had been part of the team that had systematically destroyed evidence of the ancient civilization's existence. "The Concorde," she said, each word weighted with regret. "The humans found a Concorde repository. And they were smart enough to activate it." Zijkara's primary eyes widened. "The Concorde is extinct. We ensured that younger species would never learn that we ourselves were once subjects," Kewanthara interrupted. "That the Tal-Shara Empire was built on the bones of our teacher's legacy. That everything we claim to have invented, our faster-than-light drives, our energy weapons, our translation technology, was scavenged from Concorde ruins." The war chamber fell silent. This was the Empire's greatest secret, known only to the highest echelons of leadership. "If this becomes known," Thexmil whispered, "every species under our dominion will question our authority." "It's already becoming known," Kewanthara replied. She gestured, and a new holographic display appeared. "This is a broadcast from the Karathi resistance movement. They intercepted human transmissions. They've learned that the Concorde taught species to govern themselves, not to submit to empires." Zijkara watched the broadcast with growing horror. It showed a Karathi citizen, one of the first species the Tal-Shara had integrated, speaking passionately to an invisible audience. "For 3,000 cycles, we believed the Tal-Shara were our benefactors," the Karathi declared. "But the humans have shown us the truth. The Concorde left knowledge for all species to share, not for one empire to hoard. We demand independence. We demand the freedom to choose our own path." "There are similar broadcasts from the Plenix homeworld," Kewanthara continued. "From the Vaughn Collective. From the Helios Cluster. The humans haven't just attacked our fleets, they've attacked our legitimacy." Zijkara felt the weight of 47,000 cycles of tradition pressing down on her. "We cannot appear weak. We must crush the humans and make an example of them." "With what forces?" Thexmil asked bitterly. "We've lost 37 capital ships in 3 days. Our fleets are scattered across the galaxy, trying to maintain control over 163 increasingly rebellious civilizations. If we concentrate our forces against humanity, we risk uprisings everywhere else." "Then we negotiate," suggested a new voice. All eyes turned to Ambassador Selkor, who had been silent until now. He was young for a high-ranking Tal-Shara, his carapace still showing the vivid colors of youth. "Negotiate." Zijkara's voice dripped with disdain. With primitives? With equals? Selkor corrected. High Arbiter, we must face reality. The humans possess Concord technology. They have proven themselves capable of inflicting severe damage on our forces. More importantly, they have exposed the foundations of our empire to scrutiny. We have two choices: adapt or collapse. Kyoanthara's ancient eyes studied the young ambassador with something approaching hope. What do you propose? We offer the humans what we should have offered all species from the beginning: partnership, not domination. We admit that the Talshera Empire was built on a lie. We transform from an empire into a true federation of equals. Impossible. Zijkara struck the floor with her primary limb. The Ascension protocols have governed for 47,000 cycles. We cannot simply. The Ascension protocols have been a mistake for 47,000 cycles, Selkor interrupted, a dangerous act that would normally result in execution. The Concord tried to teach the early Talshera about cooperation between equals. We twisted that teaching into a justification for conquest. The humans are giving us a chance to correct that error. Zijkara looked around the war chamber. She saw fear in every face, but also something else. A desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, there was a way forward that didn't end in the Empire's complete destruction. Contact Ambassador Vross, she said finally, her voice heavy with defeat. Tell him the High Arbiter requests a meeting. No preconditions. No threats. Just conversation. Kyoanthara touched the High Arbiter's carapace gently. This is wisdom, Zijkara. True wisdom. This is surrender, Zijkara replied. No, said Selkor. This is evolution. The gathering. The neutral station hung in the void between stars, a massive ring structure that had been built by the Concord millions of years ago as a meeting place for galactic civilizations. Keeper Vethazir had reactivated it specifically for this occasion. Ambassador Kalen Vross walked the crystalline corridors, marveling at architecture that seemed to grow organically from itself. Beside him, Dr. Miriam Chinokafor carried a data tablet containing humanity's proposals. Behind them, a security detail led by Commander Darius Kane kept watch, though Vethazir had assured them violence was impossible within the station's confines. The Talshera delegation has arrived, Vethazir's voice resonated through the walls themselves. As have representatives from the Karathi, Plenix, and 14 other civilizations. This gathering is unprecedented in modern galactic history. They entered a vast amphitheater where seats arranged in concentric circles descended toward a central platform. Already the space was filling with beings of impossible variety, crystalline entities that chimed as they moved, gaseous clouds contained in force fields, silicon-based life forms that looked like ambulatory boulders, and dozens of others. High Arbiter Zijkara sat in the highest tier, her violet carapace now touched with streaks of gold, hope mixed with apprehension. When she saw Kalen, she raised a limb in a gesture he'd learned meant acknowledgement between equals. Kalen returned the gesture and made his way to the human delegation's assigned seats. As he did, a Karathi representative, a being named Velshan whose 6 legs ended in delicate manipulator claws, approached him. Ambassador Vross, Velshan's translated voice carried warmth. The Karathi people wish to thank humanity for revealing the truth about our history. For 3,000 cycles, we believed ourselves inferior, grateful for Talshera guidance. Now we know we were robbed of our autonomy. We only shared what we learned, Kalen replied. What you do with that knowledge is your choice. Choice? Velshan repeated, savoring the word. Yes. That is what we've been missing. As the amphitheater filled, Keeper Vethazir materialized on the central platform. The being had chosen a more imposing form for the occasion. Towering, radiant, clearly ancient and powerful. Sentience of the galaxy, Vethazir began, its voice reaching every corner without technological assistance. You gather here as your ancestors once did, when the Concord facilitated dialogue between emerging civilizations. I am the last of those who built this place, and I am humbled to see it serve its purpose once more. The being gestured, and holographic images filled the space above the platform. Images of the Concord at its height, hundreds of species working together, sharing knowledge, exploring the universe as partners. The Concord made many achievements, Vethazir continued. But our greatest failure was not in our ending but in our teaching. We showed the Talshera how to organize, how to build, how to maintain order. But we failed to instill the most important lesson, that civilizations thrive through diversity, not uniformity. Through cooperation, not control. Zijkara rose, her voice amplified by the station's systems. Keeper Vethazir speaks truth. The Talshera Empire has existed for 47,000 cycles, believing we were bringing enlightenment to the galaxy. We now understand we were perpetuating our own trauma. The Concord disappeared and left us feeling abandoned, vulnerable. We responded by ensuring we would never feel powerless again. We became the very thing we feared, an overwhelming force that gave others no choice. The admission sent ripples through the assembled civilizations. Many had never heard a Talshera leader acknowledge any error, let alone such a fundamental one. Kalen stood. Humanity is the newest spacefaring civilization here. We have the least experience, the smallest territory, the most to learn. But we do have one thing, a very long history of making mistakes and learning from them. We've built empires and watched them fall. We've conquered and been conquered. We've nearly destroyed ourselves a dozen times over. He activated his tablet, sharing information with all present. This is humanity's proposal for what we're calling the Galactic Cooperative. Not an empire. Not a federation with one species in charge. A true cooperative where each civilization maintains its sovereignty while contributing to mutual defense, shared research, and cultural exchange. A Plenix representative, a floating orb of bioluminescent neural tissue, pulsed with curiosity. How would decisions be made? In the Empire, the Talshera decided for all. Consensus, Miriam answered, standing beside Kalen. Each civilization gets representation proportional to its population, but major decisions require agreement from at least 75% of member species. No single civilization can dominate the rest. And military forces? Asked Thexmil, the Talshera war coordinator. How would we defend against external threats? Coordinated defense, Commander Kane responded. Each civilization maintains its own fleet. In times of crisis, we coordinate strategy but don't centralize command. We've learned that diverse tactical approaches are stronger than monolithic strategies. Velshan clicked excitedly. This would mean the Karathi could develop our own technologies, pursue our own scientific interests? Exactly, Kalen confirmed. The Concord knowledge repositories are being open to all species equally. What you do with that knowledge is yours to decide. Zizkara descended from her high seat to the central platform, standing beside Kalen, a symbolic gesture that didn't go unnoticed. The Talshera Empire formally dissolves, she announced. We propose to join this galactic cooperative as equal members, contributing our resources and knowledge without expecting dominance in return. Vethazir's form blazed with approval. Thus begins a new age. Let it be one worthy of remembrance. New Horizons. 6 months after the gathering, Captain Zara Michailova stood on the bridge of a very different ship. The UNSC Horizons promise was a joint construction. Human engineering merged with Talshera metallurgy, Karathi energy systems, Plenix computational networks, and Concord design principles. The result was a vessel unlike anything the galaxy had seen in millennia. Final systems check complete, announced Lieutenant Jamal Torres, who transferred with Zara to this new assignment. All departments reporting ready for departure. Beside Zara stood Subcommander Thrixinel, a Talshera officer who'd volunteered for the joint crew. His carapace shimmered with excitement, a color Zara had learned to recognize over months of working together. I never imagined I would serve alongside other species as equals, Thrixinel admitted. The old empire would have considered this heresy. The old empire was built on fear, Zara replied. This new cooperative is built on something better. The Horizons promise had a mission unlike any before, to explore the uncharted regions beyond the spiral arm, seeking new civilizations to invite into the cooperative, with no weapons, no threats, just an offer of partnership. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Cooperative Council, reported the communications officer, a Karathi named Ristef whose 6 legs worked the console with mesmerizing precision. Dr. Miriam Chinokafor's face appeared on the view screen. She'd been elected to the council as one of humanity's 3 representatives. Captain Michailova, the council wanted to wish you well on your maiden voyage. You're carrying the hopes of 173 civilizations. No pressure, Zara joked. Miriam smiled. You've faced worse. Before you go, I wanted to share some news. Ambassador Vras and High Arbiter Zizkara have announced the formation of the Concord Archives Committee. They're working together to locate and catalog all remaining Concord repositories, ensuring the knowledge is distributed equally among all cooperative members. Kalen and Zizkara working together, Zara mused. 6 months ago, they were on opposite sides of an ultimatum. People change when systems change, Miriam said. Speaking of which, We've received applications from 47 new civilizations requesting consideration for cooperative membership. Some of them were so isolated they didn't even know other spacefaring species existed. 47, Zara repeated, noting the symmetry. Just like the ambassadors we sent out. History has a sense of poetry, Miriam agreed. Safe travels, Captain. Show the galaxy what cooperation looks like. The transmission ended, and Zara turned to her multinational, multi-species crew. All hands, this is the captain. Today we begin humanity's first deep space exploration mission, not as conquerors, not as missionaries, but as neighbors. We carry no weapons of conquest, only tools of discovery. We seek not to dominate but to connect. Let's make this count. She settled into the command chair, designed to accommodate 3 different body types, and gave the order. Helm, take us out. Set course for the Andromeda vector. The Horizon's Promise slipped away from the cooperative central station, its engines glowing with hybrid technology that represented the best thinking of dozens of civilizations. As they accelerated toward the jump point, Zara reflected on how much had changed. Contact, Jamal announced. Detecting energy signatures consistent with a pre-warp civilization in the Sigma Draconis system. Preliminary analysis suggests they're on the verge of achieving faster-than-light capability. Perfect, Zara said. That's exactly what we're looking for. Helm, adjust course. Let's be there when they make their first jump. Let's make sure their first contact isn't with an empire demanding submission, but with a cooperative offering partnership. Thrixanael moved to the science station, working alongside a Plenix technician whose bioluminescent pulses indicated deep concentration. Captain, I'm detecting unusual readings from the Sigma Draconis primary star. Elevated neutrino output, irregular magnetic field fluctuations. Could it be dangerous to the pre-warp civilization? Zara asked. Potentially. If these readings indicate an impending stellar event, they might not have the technology to detect or escape it. Zara made her decision instantly. Then we don't just observe. We help. Prepare a disaster assessment team. If that civilization is in danger, we assist them, whether they've achieved warp capability or not. That's what the cooperative does. The old empire would never have risked exposure to a pre-warp species, Thrixanael observed. We're not the old empire, Zara reminded him. We're something better. We're what the Concord hoped civilizations could become. As the Horizon's Promise streaked toward its destination, carrying hope and assistance rather than demands and threats, Zara allowed herself a moment of pride. Humanity had been threatened with extinction 6 months ago. They'd responded not with surrender but with defiance. And that defiance had sparked a revolution that transformed the galaxy. The Empire had expected submission. The Council had received humanity. And the universe would never be the same. 10 years later, Ambassador Kalen Vross, now retired from active diplomacy, stood in the memorial gardens on Earth, watching children play among sculptures representing each member civilization of the Galactic Cooperative. The cooperative had grown to 312 member species, a testament to the power of cooperation over coercion. A familiar figure approached, High Arbiter Zizkara, though she no longer used the title. She'd become simply Zikara, council member and friend. Your planet is beautiful, Kalen, she said, her carapace now displaying warm gold tones, the Tal Shera expression of contentment. I understand why your species fought so fiercely to protect it. Every world is beautiful to those who call it home, Kalen replied. That's what the old empire never understood. One species' paradise isn't a resource to be exploited, it's a home to be respected. They walked together through gardens designed by a Karathi landscape artist, featuring plants from 40 different worlds coexisting in carefully balanced ecosystems. I received a message from Captain Michailova, Zizkara said. The Horizon's Promise has made contact with 6 new civilizations in the past year. All have expressed interest in joining the cooperative. 6 in 1 year? We're growing faster than the Council can keep up with. A good problem to have, Zikara clicked with amusement. Though I admit, part of me misses the simplicity of the old days when the Tal Shera simply dictated terms. Do you really? Kalen asked, eyebrows raised. Zikara's carapace darkened thoughtfully. No. I miss the certainty perhaps. The illusion that we had all the answers. But I do not miss the isolation. The fear that underlay every interaction. The knowledge that our empire was built on suppressing others' potential. They paused before a sculpture, a representation of the moment when Kalen had delivered humanity's ultimatum to the Tal Shera tribunal. It showed 2 figures, one human, one Tal Shera, facing each other as equals. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if humanity had submitted? Zhkara asked. Kalen considered. Sometimes. We'd probably have become like the other integrated species, contributing resources, losing our autonomy, forgetting what it meant to choose our own path. But we didn't submit. And that changed everything. Your defiance saved more than just humanity, Zhkara said quietly. It saved the Tal Shera from ourselves. We were trapped in a cycle of our own making, unable to see that we'd become the very thing we feared when the Concord disappeared. You broke that cycle. A young girl, no more than 8 years old, ran up to them, her eyes wide with wonder. Trailing behind her was a young Tal Shera, barely past the juvenile stage, his carapace still showing the iridescent shimmer of youth. Ambassador Vross, the girl exclaimed. Is it true? Did you really tell an entire empire to go away? Kalen knelt to be at eye level with the child. Not exactly. I told them we wouldn't surrender. There's a difference. What's the difference? The Tal Shera youth asked, his translation coming through with the slight hesitation of someone still learning. Telling someone to go away is about pushing them out, Kalen explained. Refusing to surrender is about standing your ground. One is about hate. The other is about hope, hope that there's a better way than submission. The children nodded solemnly, then ran off to continue their game, a hybrid of human tag and Tal Shera pursuit pattern practice. That's our legacy, Zhkara observed. 10 years ago, our species were on the brink of war. Now, our children play together without knowing the fear and hatred that nearly destroyed us all. Kalen's tablet chimed. He glanced at it and smiled. It's from Dr. Chinokafor. The Cooperative Science Council has announced a breakthrough in Concord translation technology. They've successfully decoded another repository, this one containing information about intergalactic travel. Intergalactic. Zhkara's eyes widened. That would mean the Andromeda Galaxy could become accessible within our lifetimes, Kalen confirmed. New civilizations. New partnerships. New possibilities. They stood together, human and Tal Shera, watching the sunset paint Earth's sky in colors that reminded Kalen of Zhkara's carapace at its most hopeful. I'm glad I lived to see this, Zhkara said softly. An old warrior learning that surrender can be strength, that admitting error can be wisdom, that the greatest victory is the one that creates no losers. We all learned that together, Kalen replied. Human, Tal Shera, Karathi, Plenix and all the others. That's the real miracle of the cooperative, not that we found common ground but that we created it together. Far above them, beyond the atmosphere, beyond the orbit of Earth's moon, starships representing dozens of civilizations moved in coordinated patterns, not as conquerors, not as subjects, but as partners in an ever-expanding community of equals. The Empire had expected submission. The Council had received humanity. And together they had built something greater than either could have achieved alone, a galaxy united not by force but by choice, not by fear but by hope. And that hope would carry them to the stars and beyond.